points from his presentation to explore a bit more about the design goals and reasons for the GNOME shell. Like he said in his presentation, GNOME is designed for to do some things really well instead of mediocre for just everyone. But to understand why that's the case, we have to contextualize it and compare and contrast it with other desktop paradigms that other desktop environments have used. So before we discuss how we can change the GNOME shell and how it fits into these paradigms, we're going to run you through the history of desktop paradigms. So there's 4 more or less common user interface paradigms that are used for contemporary desktop systems. I think the one that we're most familiar with was pioneered in the 70s by Xerox, and this is an example of it in BOS. It's the desktop metaphor where they use the concept of a physical desk and lay out your files as icons on the metaphorical desktop and have windows as if they were pages and papers on your desktop. So there's a workspace for you to work with. It's a terribly convoluted concept if you think about it. Like just trying to describe what a desktop environment is, and what are we actually talking about when we're talking about the desktop? Like, is it this particular view where we have icons? Is it the machine that we have that's not a laptop, that's actually a desktop tower, or is it the desktop system, which is the whole interface of windows, icons, menus, and pointers, as we'll see. There have been some suggestions by UI designers that we should get rid of the desktop metaphor, that we should move ahead and use something that's called a ZUI. It's a zoomable user interface, where everything is spread out on a 2-dimensional canvas, and you zoom, pan, go, I think is the tagline for the Raspbian UI. This is a design concept where you'll zoom in to, let's say, if you want to edit a document, you'll zoom to the document and you can type straight away into the document. If you want to go to a web page, you swipe ahead, you go to your browser page, and that's where you browse with touch gestures to the page you're interested in. As you can see, this is running on top of OS X. As of today, there's no full implementation of the ZUI, and it's also quite questionable whether it could accommodate the wide variety of tasks that we use a computer for. But maybe especially the programmers here might have heard of, is it called Light Table? Which, yeah. Light Table is an interesting concept. It's an IDE where they use this concept. There's no menus, no items, just texts and different shades of gray. Another concept was like, okay, we need to really get rid of this desktop metaphor. We need to have natural interfaces. We need to translate our common day interactions and gestures into an interface. And that's when you get 3-dimensional physical space metaphors, where in the case of bump top, you would actually pick up a document and put it in front of you, and then use a stylus to write on it. If you want to print a document, as you can perhaps tell, there's a printer there. You would pick up your file, put it in a printer, and it would actually send it to the printer. So this is supposedly very intuitive for people to use because it mimics the way that we would go about things in the physical world. Here you can see Bump Top, where you have 4 different themes, each with walls where you can put up your documents, your websites, and your applications that you would position yourself in front if you actually were to use them. But personally, the 2D canvas and the 3D physical space are more conceptual than they are practical. And if we look at the current suggestions, the current generation of desktop paradigms, we see that they're app-centric WIMPs. WIMPs being the Windows icons, menus, and pointers. And they all seem to have like four items in common. Just as Mathieu said in his previous talk, we are abstracting away from the file system. I think iOS was one of the first to do it when they said, okay, there's no file browser. You get to your documents or your files through the applications that actually require them. So in GNOME, it's going the same way. There's full screen apps. It's a crazy idea, but OS X has recently introduced full screen apps now, I believe. So even OS X is also moving towards the app-centric WIMP, where an OS is predominantly used as a tool to get to your applications. I must say that by full screen utility, it doesn't just mean that the apps are full screen, but it can also be a tiling window manager, where the idea is just that you no longer have to worry about window placement as much. There's no contact switch between the mouse and the keyboard for window arrangement, because on a tablet, for example, you don't have the fine-grained control that's necessary to actually move around all those windows. So there's several proposals to solve that issue. The one in GNOME Shell is workspaces, mostly. They are digitally native, and this for me is very important. I think we should use the strengths of a medium and not mimic and imitate something that isn't native to that medium. So in a sense, a computer is a digital platform. So what works well on a computer? When you have a two-dimensional screen, this means that two-dimensional panes work well. If it's a square screen, and if programs draw those screens with coordinates, then it's quite like